Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Reclaim Your Power Masterclass. My name is Carrie, and I'll be your moderator for tonight. And we're just privileged to have Diane Halfman with us tonight. And Diane is the Life Reset Specialist. She brings a wide variety of experiences and talents to the work that she does in helping women entrepreneurs who are successful reach the next level. So Diane, I'll turn the masterclass over to you.
Okay. So I held a gun in this hand for 10 years, walking the streets undercover as a prostitute, running down alleys, chasing after Crips and Bloods, working 16-hour shifts of 911 call after 911 call. There wasn't a shift that I didn't pull my gun out of my holster. Now, there was one assignment where it was actually pretty fun, where I was undercover and we were riding mountain bikes in suburban neighborhoods, chasing after what we called 10851s, which were stolen vehicles. On one of these nights, I was actually riding my mountain bike down a street called Candy Rose Way, and I was going downhill, and boom, I hit a pothole. I went over the top of my handlebars, and I put my hand out, and bam, I fell and rolled till I was flat on my back. And I looked over at my right arm, and my fingers were bent over towards my elbow. I was rushed to the emergency and woke up 7 hours later and finding a big contraption on my arm called an external fixator, and it had 6 rods through it, my gun hand. I was shattered, not only my gun hand, but how was I going to live life differently? I had to move back in with my parents and relearn how to use my other hand, my left hand, because I couldn't use my right hand for 6 months. I had to relearn how to dress myself, to brush my hair, to brush my teeth. Even using toilet paper was a challenge. You know, I was used to every day just living in crazy mode, being out and having emergency mode through my work. Now I was going stir crazy, being confined to my bedroom and not knowing what the next step was or what I was going to do. You would think after 6 months of having this recovery time that it would change the way I was looking at my life and I would be doing something different. It didn't. It wasn't until my dear friend's 7-year-old daughter was kidnapped and killed, and us helping and supporting each other go through that tragic loss, that we really embraced taking a deep level of self-care and to finally, once and for all, to make that a priority in my life. And with that, I'm no longer a cop, but I used those skills, that being in emergency mode and knowing how deeply exhausted I was through that time, that when I started connecting with entrepreneurs, I started seeing that they too were running in emergency mode and that they were letting their life leak their power. And that's why it is so important for me to be here with you, to share this experience together about how you can reclaim your power no matter where you are in your life, and to be sharing those 5 secrets of success so that you can get more done by working less and that you don't have to be in emergency mode. Now, I would love for you guys, whether you're here live with me or on the replay, that you stay with me to the end. And I'm going to be making it worth your while because we're going to be having a raffle drawing, and it has a $750 value. You're not going to want to miss this. In fact, I'm going to give you a hint. There's something in there that's going to be part of an SOS. You're going to want to know what that is. So hang on with me to the end. This is going to be interactive. So don't just sit back or be in your car driving. Make sure that you pull over, grab a piece of paper and a pen. There's going to be notes that you're going to want to capture here because I want you to start looking at what are the things that are working really well for you and what are some of the things that you need to have some support in. So let's dive in. So let's look at, what are the things for you? What are, are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you feeling like you're not spending the time with the people that you want to spend time with? Are you feeling exhausted even on the days where you technically have a day off? Are you even having any days off? I remember days like that where it felt like even when I had time off, I wasn't feeling rested. So we want to look at what are the secrets, what are the things you can reclaim your power to actually start being intentional about your life. So I'm going to be using the word power to really move through an acronym that I use so that you can have some tangible things to take away from us being here, especially if you're feeling conflicted of spending time with the people that you love with, that you love to be with, and if your self-care continues to get bumped for other people's priorities. So we want to make sure that you are taking control back into your life. And the first way that we're going to do that in the acronym of POWER is to look at the P in POWER, which is for being purposeful. Purposeful is so important and a big part of this process. So I don't know where your day has been like today. I don't know what has been a flow for you, if it feels like today's been emergency mode, but a lot of times when you've got your day happening and then you come to something where you're interacting and you need to kind of catch up to yourself, we're going to do something called a brain dump. So I would love for you to get a piece of paper. If you don't have paper, you can always use notes on your phone. But this is a great way to be really purposeful and to start having awareness around what's working for you and what's not working for you. Because so many times when we're feeling overwhelmed is because we've got so much in our head that we are not able to be present and to be able to look at what are all the possibilities that we want to do. So what I'd love for you to do is we're going to take like even just a minute, because I want to show you how many things are actually in your head where you can actually start thinking about what are all the things spinning in your head. And you don't have to write full-on sentences, just write down 1 or 2 words that come up for you. So, if you start thinking right now, I'm going to talk a little bit as you're doing some of this, and you'll have this to reflect on also later if you don't have paper in front of you, to really start looking at, what are the calls that you need to make? What are the emails you need to make? What are the errands that you need to do, right? These are some of the things that swim in our head that can sap our energy and take away our power because it's being drained by our mind thinking about so many things at once. So you want to be able to have awareness around what's happening, and you want to be purposeful in your life to be able to look at just the next step versus all the other steps that are happening around you. So when you use the brain dump exercise where you're actually looking at all the things that you're pouring out of your head, you can start seeing, are there just one thing that you're just thinking about over and over again and having an open loop, which can sap your power by doing that? Or you can have a bunch of things that you maybe forgot about and your brain is just trying to remind you of that. But you will instantly start feeling some, increased energy and some power when you get these things out of your head. So after you've done that, let's make a point of just taking even a deep breath, because that also clears you into looking at something differently. So let's just all do a deep breath together. So, right. So this is a good way to calm your nervous system down, to really start having awareness around what's happening or what you're doing, what you're choosing to do, and be more purposeful about what you decide to do. Start thinking about, are you doing things because you've intended it and you're being purposeful on it? Or are you getting distracted by all the other things that other people have and it's taking you out of the game, right? So by just taking one step, when you look at all the things on this piece of paper, you can also start circling like, hey, what are the things that absolutely need to happen? What's something that maybe can be delegated? And then what is something that maybe you can just take off altogether? Maybe you felt guilty, like, oh, I thought I was going to do that, or I wanted to do that, but it doesn't inspire you and it actually doesn't move you forward in the goals that you have. You can give yourself permission to actually take those things off your list. So the P in power is purposeful. I want you to be able to look at that and see what are the ways that you're being purposeful in your life and what does that look like for you. So the O in the power is for own it, right? In what ways are you owning your life, right? There's some things that we look at in terms of we think that life can just happen to us and it's just by default. And what happens is that when we are not owning our life, we let other people's agendas jump ahead of us and really make decisions for us. And we don't want to have that happen. We want to design our life. We actually want to be purposeful in what happens. So part of owning your life is choosing it and knowing that you are the asset in your life, especially if you have a business. You've got to take care of yourself and you want to be able to utilize your values to really design that life in a way that reflects you. So one of the things you want to look at is your calendar is the one tool that people underutilize. They may have a lot of the things that they have to do in there. In fact, how many of you, and I'd love to see in some of the comments here, have so many things on your calendar that you have to do that you don't see necessarily what you get to do? So if you have a lot of have tos on your calendar, I would love for you to put the number 2 in the chat box. You know, to just see like what is happening for you guys. How many things are coming up for you that are more about the have to? When you have more have tos in your calendar and through your energy, then it can drain it, because the energy of have to feels like a push, right? Versus pulling you into an experience. And we're going to talk more about that when we get to the letter E. But for now, as we're looking at owning what you're doing and designing, we want to make sure that you use your calendar, because your calendar is your mind in action. If you look at your calendar, that's a reflection of your life. Whatever's on there, that is how you're choosing to live your life. So if you say something like, you know, family is important to me, but they're not on your calendar, then how important really is it, right? If that's an aha for you, then I'd love for you to put an A in the chat box so that you can kind of see what is happening on your calendar, and is that a reflection of something you're designing in your life versus you're just by default where things are happening in other people's agendas. So I have an example of this where I had a client of mine, Maddie, who when I met him had a boat that he had for his retirement, and he'd only been on it a couple times when we were together, and he always talked about someday. Right? How many of you guys can relate to this? Well, someday after, you know, the kids graduate, or I get a promotion, or I get the next client, or I remodel the house, or there's just the next thing that starts happening, then, you know, then I'm going to start enjoying my life, and or as soon as I retire. Well, one of the things when we look at how we can actually design our life and how we own our life and we get to choose it, we can actually decide what that looks like. So I did an experiment with Maddie where we said that, you know what, if you were retired, what would your day look like? And he said, I'd love to be on my boat. I would love to go for, you know, a sail on that, but I just don't feel like I have any time. So we looked at re-looking at his calendar in a way that would reflect a life that he would actually love, where he had Fridays as a day that was like he was retired. And so every Friday he would wake up as if he was retired, without an alarm clock, no calls, no agenda. He would just get up when he woke up and felt rested, and then went straight out to the boat and was sailing all day. Now, what happened with that was he had some of his most brilliant ideas. He had such clarity on the water. He could come up with these great ideas so that even though he worked one day less in his business, he could really let himself dream and see what are the things that he wanted to do. So he actually felt inspired when he got back to his work. And so he got to feed his soul, own the life that he wanted to have. It wasn't something that was going to happen 5, 10, 20, 30 years when he retired. He was creating it now. And it had a positive, you know, side effect of actually impacting his business for the better. So we want to look at how we are designing our life that actually protects us in a way that allows us to live the life that we want to have. And we need to know that you are the asset. If you don't take care of yourself, if you don't restore yourself, and something happens to you, you know, many of us, our business wouldn't function well if we're not there. So you have to listen to your body and be able to heal it, and rejuvenation, and all the different things that allow us to own our life in a way so that we can show up in a more powerful way. So those are our first 2 so far, and in our POWER acronym. If you guys have any questions around that, you know, Carrie's going to be fielding the comments. If anything's come up for you, if you have any personal examples around that, if there's any questions that you'd like me to answer around that, I would be happy to do that. Maybe some of the ways that you want to be able to design your life more, some of the awarenesses that you have. If you're noticing, particularly back with the P, within doing the brain dump, that you have, you're noticing certain things are not working for you. Another resource that we put in there, and Carrie, if you want to put this in the chat box here, about if you've not taken my life reset quiz, that is another tool that you can do to have deeper awareness. Because the more we're aware of what's happening in our mind, in our space, and our self-care, the more we can make shifts and changes. And, you know, sometimes people will take those several times so they can see what has shifted and what's changed, because awareness is always the first step to be able to shift and change what we're doing. So Again, anything comes up for you guys in the question, then I'm happy to do that. So I hope you guys also, part of self-care, you have some water. So take a little sip here. Cheers. Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's continue in on our power acronym. So we did the P, which is purposeful, and the O, which is own it, and the W is wisdom. This is so important that you listen to your inner wisdom. How many times have you guys had this knowingness within you and you've overridden it, right? And something will happen and it'll go down a path, and then when you look back later, you're like, I knew it, right? We have so much inner wisdom within us, and so we need to be able to step back and look at, what do you really know within yourself? What is it that is that knowingness that happens? And I'd love for you guys to put in the comments, where do you feel your knowingness in your body? Is it something that you feel in your gut? Is it something you feel in your heart? Is it something you just kind of sense around you? What is it? Because really being able to identify where that is with you helps you then trigger, when you feel that, to pay more closely attention to it. So it's a great way to start just taking a moment to do that. And we're just going to take like a couple seconds just to have you guys do a quick scan. Just go from like the top of your head and just move through your body all the way through, all the way down through your stomach and all the way down your legs. And just take a moment to see, where do you feel anxiety? Where in your body do you feel overwhelmed? Okay. And then when you have a great idea, where do you feel excited, right? Where do you feel accomplished? Like, these are things that, notice, is it in the same place in your body, or are these in different places in your body, right? So when you start noticing where they land, they can start being pure kind of precursors to let you know, aha, I've got some inner wisdom that's happening for me now. I need to actually listen to that, right? So you want to be more mindful to your inner knowing so that you can act from that place and really come from your place of wisdom, and not let all the what I call monkey mind, the chatter that happens in your head, to steer you away from what you really know. And wisdom actually comes from giving yourself some silence, right? And so if there's so much happening in our space and we're running from one thing to the next and we're not actually giving ourselves those quiet moments, even if you just lock yourself in a bathroom or in your car or in your bedroom for even just 30 seconds of having that quiet moment, you feel where that wisdom is coming from, and you will be able to receive that next step of where you need to go. So these are some things that we may know about, but we forget about, and it's part of that reminder that happens to allow us to move through this. So one of my favorite examples that I had in regards to wisdom was, I was on a vacation trip with a friend of mine from my graduate school, Joan, and we went out to Palm Springs, and we thought that we would go to this like quaint, historic hotel. It was called the Inglewood, and a lot of, old Hollywood royalty would stay there, and there was only one room left at the inn, right? And so they went to go show us the room, and it had this old decor in there, and it had two little twin beds with these old canopy carpets over the top of it, and it just felt really kind of dank in there. And my inner knowing was like, we should not stay here. Like, there's just something about it was just like, it wouldn't be a good choice to stay. But I was with my friend, and we were going to be having dinner with friends, and I just said, no, you know what? I just overrid it and just said, it'll be fine, right? So we went to dinner and had a good evening and came back to the room, and we were getting ready, put our pajamas on, getting in bed, and, turned off the light. And I wasn't in bed no more than like 30 seconds. And I am like laying on my back, and all of a sudden I feel this like splat on my chest. And I'm like, I don't know if it was the cop in me or the woman in me that was freaked out or what, but I went jumping out of my bed, flipped on the light, grabbed my shoe, and saw this huge bug, looked like a big extra size roach. And I like smashed it with my shoe. And I was so like freaked out by the whole thing of just that, that feeling of being out of your environment. And so I had put my shoes on, And I had walked out in my pajamas, mind you, talk about how out of sorts I was with things, and went in and just said, this thing had just like landed on me. And I'm like, you got to come see this. I don't know what's going on. And so the night watch person had come in and said, oh, that's the date palm bug, as if it was no big deal. It was something that lived in the trees in Palm Springs and made just like no big deal about it. So needless to say, we slept with the lights on and did not stay there again. But it's a perfect example, even though it can be funny and, it can be no big deal and it can happen anywhere. I knew something wasn't right about it and I ignored it. So I want you guys to start thinking about what are some of the examples in your life where you just know something is not working for you and you overrid it. Those are some of the clues that we need to look at. Those are ways that leak our power, is when we don't go within and we know something and we override it. So our inner wisdom can really save us in a lot of different ways. So
Diane, I want to jump in here because, well, first of all, that's an awesome story. And Barbara, her decision-making center is in her gut. She typed into the chat, and that's mine too. And maybe you could talk just a little bit about the decision-making centers, where those are for most people.
Got it. Right. Well, that's actually a great question, Carrie, because, the decision centers there's not actually set decision centers for, each person actually feels it differently in their body. So we're very unique that way. Now, sometimes people will say, and this is just kind of a general rule of thumb, is that if you're having a not feel good experience or not feel good feeling, right? In fact, I was just recently at a talk with Dr. Joan Rosenberg, and she was talking about in some of her work that instead of saying a good feeling, bad feeling, because they're just feelings, right? They're things that just move through us. And she said that feelings actually leave your body within 90 seconds. And so it's great to know that even though you're feeling something and it may feel uncomfortable, it actually can move through really quickly when we allow that to happen. Now, part of what she was talking about was that if you're having a feeling that doesn't feel that good, it tends to be something that happens from like your waist down. So the not so good feelings tend to be like in your stomach, right? You may feel it in your legs. It may be something that feels heavy, or it feels cold, it may be a sensation. It's that kind of feeling and having some noticing that happens around that. Whereas on the other side, there may be people who have like feelings that feel good feelings tend to have it above the waist, where it's in your heart, or it's something that is maybe in your chest, or it's something that maybe will be actually in your head. But it's something where you can kind of differentiate for yourself. Now, it doesn't mean that because you feel something good below your waist that you're doing it wrong. It's just how it registers. It's just important to know how your body reacts to these things, because our body is one of our best indicators of what's happening and senses what is happening around us. So to be able to really utilize that and access our inner wisdom by using our body as a tool, and to really check in with our emotions to really help us with this. Now, this is something that can be developed. It's not like you're born with it type thing, or you have the capability to be born with it. But what I'm saying is that sometimes your conditioning, your learning has us forget what we actually know. And so being able to really hone that is really important. So for instance, when I did like police work, I was exposed to a lot of negative emotions, a lot of negative, scenes and things that were really tough to see. So I tended to suppress my emotions so I wouldn't feel them, right? And you do that over time, it became more challenging for me to actually listen to my body and be in awareness of what's happening in the moment, right? So it's a learned skill like anything else, where when we start using it and we start paying attention to it, then you can make the difference and access that inner wisdom. So.
Okay. And then one other question, you had mentioned the monkey mind. Can you just circle back around on that a little bit?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things about the monkey mind is it's all the chatter. I call it monkey because of the chatter that happens in our head, right? I mean, our mind is meant to be a beautiful tool that reminds us of things because it thinks that we're going to forget. So instead of telling us once, it tells us like, 20, 100 million times over and over again. And it can even trigger headaches for people. It can make people feel anxious. It can make you feel a sense of overwhelm because certain things are being triggered in our head over and over again, which is why we started this training with doing a brain dump, because a brain dump is a great way to quiet the monkey mind, to actually let it know, like, I hear you. Almost treat the monkey mind as a separate version of yourself, where you can say, I hear you. I'm going to capture this. So you write down all the things that are happening, and it allows you to catch your breath, to reduce the overwhelm, to reduce the anxiety, and to use it as a tool to be able to focus on what is the next thing that needs to happen, knowing that you can ease your mind to know not all things have been lost. If it just keeps happening in our head, it becomes open loops, and it's a sense of non-completion, which allows us to feel like we're failing each day versus winning. So we want to be able to use these things as tools so that we can, not only regain our power, but show up more powerfully in the world.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Okay. So we've gone into our, POW in the power, and now we're going to go into the E, which is for environment. Now, this is one of my favorite things to talk about because environment is greater than willpower. And what happens, and what's important to know about this, is so many times with willpower, we push through, we make things happen, and it's a forced type thing that happens when we use our willpower. And willpower tends to only get us so far, right? I mean, a perfect example is like you set a goal. I mean, how many of you guys have set a goal and you're going strong for the first 24 hours, maybe even the first couple of weeks, and then it just goes away? New Year's resolutions are the perfect example. If you've had this experience where you've set a goal and you thought you were ready to go and make it happen and it fell away, and maybe you even felt bad about it, but if you've had this experience where you've had goals just kind of fall away, I'd love for you to just kind of put an emoji or put in me, like you've had this experience happen. I mean, and in me, I can put that in here for myself that I've had that happen. And it's because I relied on willpower to push my way through something. And I love using the example of my cupcake story, because let's say that you have a goal, that you want to be more healthy, right? Maybe you want to lose weight, or you want to have more energy, more vitality, something to improve your health, right? And so let's say as part of that, you end up doing your regular grocery shopping, or you set this intention and say, okay, willpower, I'm going to, be good on my diet, or I'm going to exercise, or whatever it is that you say that you're going to do. But then you go to the grocery store doing the normal things that you do, and you see this, gorgeous, yummy looking 1,000-calorie cupcake that you have to have, but maybe you tell yourself, I'm buying it for my family, or maybe I'll just have a bite of it, but I'm not going to let it blow my diet, right? But I'm going to bring it home just because I think I might, want a bite of it. But you put it on your counter. And particularly if you're an entrepreneur and you work from home, you may walk past that cupcake several times throughout the day. And willpower might work and get you through the morning, and it might even get you through the afternoon. But there will come a point in your day that, or in that week, or whenever that time actually happens, where you either feel stressed enough or hungry enough, or there's nothing else to eat, that you're going to dive into that cupcake because it's in your environment. So it is so much more powerful to actually create an environment that actually, pulls you into the goals that you want, versus making it harder and feeling like you're pushing and pushing in order to get something done. Now, I always like to say, because people go, well, what, I can never have a cupcake or a treat, or I can't ever have that. No, that's not true. You just don't want to sleep with the enemy. You don't want to have something in your home that's going to tempt you, that doesn't allow you to fulfill on your goals. So you want to make sure that you don't have those things in your home, that if you do want to have a special treat, that you actually have to drive and go get it, or you're on vacation and you have it, or it's a special occasion where you go out and you enjoy it guilt-free, and then you come back and you've created this environment that supports you in your long-term goals, right? So along those same lines, this can apply to any room of your home. This could be like in your office, right? If you've got papers piled up and you've created an environment that doesn't inspire you, how are you going to create a business that's going to thrive? Or maybe it got you so far, but it's not going to get you to the next level because you can't find what you're looking for, right? So it's talking about creating the environments that actually provide the experience that you want to have happen. The same for your bedroom, right? Your bedroom, you want to have a sanctuary, a place where you can sleep and it's a peaceful place. Well, if you have your computer in there or you run your business out of your bedroom, you know, you're going to have that energy that happens all the time and you're never able to deeply rest. It's not an environment that lends that to you. So it's so important to really look at what are the things in your environment that can support you. So think about what is one thing in your life that you know is an environment that you need to shift. I'd love for you guys to put in a comment, like, you know, is it a particular room? Is it a mindset? Is it taking better care of yourself? What's one thing in your environment that you know that you need to shift? Let me give you guys a second to put that in there. And one of the things that is also important to look at when it comes to your environment is that our behavior tends to change based on the environment as well. So think about this. So let's say that you are a mom and you also work at a business and you're a wife, right? When you're wearing these different roles, it sometimes seems like they all kind of blend together, but who you are when you walk in your home may be different than who you are when you walk into like a boardroom, or who you're being when you walk into like a school, you know, parent-teacher meeting, right? So your behavior can shift and change based on your environment as well. So we want to create the environments that actually support who we want to be in the space. And along those lines as well is we want to make sure that the environment that really supports us is one that is clear, that allows us to have more clarity, right? And so one of the things I always like to talk about is, you know, we're all creative beings. We want to be able to create something in our business. We want to maybe create things in our relationships. You know, being creative is something that we actually have within ourselves. It's part of how we regain our power, is being creative beings. However, you know, creativity craves clarity. We cannot be creative if we have, you know, a lot of things around us. If our head has a lot of what I call emotional clutter in there, if we have a lot of clutter in our space, if we're not taking care of ourselves, these are all things that take away our clarity. And so if we don't have clarity, it makes it really challenging to be creative. And, you know, being creative is how we expand in our business, in our life, and it may be that next great idea, which is why, remember I talked about my client who was on the water with his sailboat. He had such great, brilliant ideas because there was so much clear open space where he was at. That's why being out in nature is such a reboot for people, because they're giving themselves the space to let go of anything that's leaking their power, and they actually can stand more firm in who they are and be able to have these great inspirations of creativity, and then they can apply it. So our environment is so key to really helping us create the experience that we want to have. So I'm gonna take a quick little sip here. Love this. So we're coming down to the last letter in power, which is for R, which is for reset. And what's so important about reset, you got to think about a reset as in resetting your computer or resetting your TV or resetting anything. You actually have the control, the remote control of your own life, that you can hit the reset button at any time. So things can feel like out of control, and you can feel like things are sapping your energy, and you may be feeling overwhelmed, and you know, you maybe don't feel as confident. And there's something that when you can have some tools to be able to reset your life, you can do this in as little as 15 minutes. So it's so important to know that, you know, you don't necessarily need to have wholesale changes. It's little increments that make a big difference. However, you cannot reset your life without owning your own power, right? So if you're being pulled in so many different directions and you have so much happening that you feel overwhelmed and you feel anxious, then it makes it really challenging to really gather in all of your power to then be able to reset, because you're operating from exhaustion, right? So reset is really one of the bigger foundation aspects of regaining your power and to reset your life is by having the tools to be able to do that. So you have to be able to do something about it, right? You can't just say, well, I hope things would be different. It has to have the tools to actually be able to do that. And I'm going to be talking a little bit later about how you can have like some calls to really shore up your confidence so that you can clear out things in your space so that you can then reclaim your power and really step into being able to reset your life in a way that is maybe not going down the track that you want it to be, or maybe you're not moving as fast as you want to have, or things are out of sorts for you. So whether or not you realize it or not, you are in total control and, you know, to create the ideal life that you want, right? And I want to say that again, that you are in total, not only control, but you're in total power to create the life that you want, right? And so many times we forget that because we have so many competing things that are happening outside of ourselves that we don't necessarily check in with ourselves that are we actually living the life that we want to have? And we don't necessarily think of all the different ways that our power is seeped from us, right? And some of this may actually be a blind spot for you. And this is where I want to help you to be able to see this, and hopefully through some of these exercises that we've done through here, that you've seen some of the areas that you maybe are leaking power and how you can really shore those things up. So I want you to be able to, and I want to help you be able to put into focus some of those things that you may have forgotten around that. So I want to do kind of a quick little recap on the power and how to kind of tie this all together for you. So the P for the purposeful, this is all about deciding, right? And the O for owning it is all about claiming, right? Claiming in how you want to live your life. And then the W for wisdom is all about knowing, right? And trusting that inner knowing that you have. So when you look at the totality of that and you link that into those first three things, the POW, I call it the POW, right? This is the things that you know. This could be where you're in your head. This is where you know what to do, but you still may not be doing it, right? And the POW part of it is that you can get knocked out with too much, right? Too much life, too much stuff, too many decisions, so many things that are happening that's where the overwhelm and the anxiety can happen. So even though you know these other parts here about designing your life and making decisions and doing the knowingness around this, I mean, you can Google a lot of things and go knowing a lot of things, right? But it doesn't mean that we're implementing it in our life. And that's where the second part, the ER, right? No coincidence, ER, emergency room. What kind of emergencies are you running in your life? Your environment is about creating your reality, right? And your reset is the ease and flow in your life, right? So it's one thing to know certain things, and another thing is to actually apply it into your life and to actually implement it in a way. And something I hear so much from you guys is that you know what to do, right? But you're just not doing it, right? It's that implementation part, that getting clear on what is the next step and how do you actually regain your power and have that confidence to live the life that you want to live in the way that you want to live it. So one of the things I want to look at here is, that there is an easier way, right? And I'm gonna take a quick little sip here because I want you guys to start kind of thinking about what that looks at for you. Whether you've written it down and put in the POWER to really look at the difference between what it is that you know versus what it is that you're actually implementing and shifting and changing in your life. Take a second on that. So, yeah, I love some of the comments in here. It's great. So one of the things that we want to look at is that there is actually an easier way, right? And I have a gift for you that I want everyone to have, and it is my confidence activation session, right? Because building your confidence and really looking at, what is really happening for you, and what's getting in the way, and what is an actual plan that supports you to actually shift the way things are going, to go into what you know, into implementation to actually make those shifts and changes in your life that actually supports you. You know, an example of this is like, you know, how many of you guys have experienced where you have gotten, you know, some type of electronic and you've gotten an instruction manual, right? And you can read that instruction manual, you know, cover to cover. However, there may be some nuances that are not in the manual that are kind of a quick fix way, or that's why you have a technician that comes in and can tell you, oh, yeah, this is the 20 pages here of things, but here's the quick fix to actually be able to get something done in a way that actually, you know, supports you. So I've created these spots so that you guys can have some clarity around this. So it's not just about, you know, having the information around the power, it's how does this apply to your life? And how do you make these shifts and changes of what you've been doing? Like, what are the specific things that have been leaking in your life and in your power? And so I've created 7 spaces to be able to do this. And I'm going to be giving them out on first come, first served basis. And so you'll want to grab your copy of this now. And you can either go to my link where you've got dianehalfman.com/20-minute call, or you can also put in the chat, just call. Like, you want to grab one of those spaces, you know, one of those spots and have one of these calls, because on this call, we're going to look at what is it that you really want, right? You may have just been kind of living in your life about other people's wants and what they want for you, but you haven't really looked at what is it that you want. And that has been a way that has been leaking power out of you. And we also want to look at what's in the way, right? I mean, it's one thing to want something, but what's in the way? And you know, what are some ways and what are some next steps that work for you that you can actually identify? Because on this call, the specific thing, and this is why you want to grab one of these things, is to identify, like, what are the 3 ways that you are leaking power? What are the things that are not happening for you, so that we can, you know, really identify and get you out of overwhelm and out of anxiety, so that you can step into more clarity and confidence. And by doing that, that actually allows you to have the simple systems and structures to do that. This is something I've been supporting people with for over 20 years, almost 25 now. And so I have those like quick, you know, hacks and ways to really be able to look at, and that's actually one of my gifts, is to really quickly be able to look at someone's situation and see the parts that they're not seeing. Because that's what happens when we leak our power, is that we feel not empowered. We feel a sense of confusion. We can feel a sense of overwhelm and anxiety, and we can't see. In fact, one of the quotes that I always love is like, when you're in the picture frame, you can't see the big picture, right? You're in it. And so it's so helpful to have somebody have other eyes on what's going on for you. In fact, this may even be something that you help other people with, but I even have to go to my mentors to support me and see the things that I'm not seeing. So I would love for you guys to, you know, grab one of these calls and to get some support. And again, it's the confidence activation session. And you can either put call, or you can go to the link that is in here at dianehalfman.com/20-minute call. And I'd love for you guys to be here and to take one of those calls. So again, whether you're here live or you're here on the replay, if you have journeyed here to the end here with me, then I want to make sure that you get one of those calls. And I did not forget that we have our raffle. And so if you're at this point here, make sure that you put in the comments the number 30. That's a 30, the number 30, so that I know that you're here. And the person that gets chosen out of that raffle is going to get a chance for a 30-minute, what I call my SOS call, which is Stop Overwhelm session. It's very specifically to stop whatever's happening in overwhelm, and some of the new tools that I've actually been implementing, not only in my life, but I've been newly trained on, to really support you in stopping that. Because if you know that that's part of your daily experience, it's a really powerful call to be part of that. And that is, you know, my gift to you for being here with me throughout all of this time together. So I just want to thank you. I'm actually going to give you like about 30 seconds. I'm actually going to go, you know, refill my water. And so if you want to do the same, I'm going to come back and answer, you know, any questions that you have, anything that's come up, any other ways I can support you. I'm going to come back here and help, you know, answer any of those questions that come that you have. So again, thank you, and I'll be back in just 30 seconds. Stand by. Okay, got my new water here. Okay, Care, do we have any questions or anything I can answer? Anybody have anything to add?
Well, looking through the chat, we've got everybody throwing in call and 30, and obviously people want to talk to you for good reason, because you got a lot of wisdom to share. And just earlier in the comments, Sally had talked about, clutter in her home. Rachel talking about better care of self, or things that they wanted to be able to accomplish. And I think, I talked about paperwork in my office. I think everybody has these type of challenges, and the great thing is you have the systems and the processes to be able to put in place. Because I know that when I have a system and a process in place, then it becomes super easy just to drop those things in, and I don't have to think about it as much. It becomes automatic, and because it becomes automatic, it goes much faster, and I don't have the overwhelm build up for me. So, and you've helped me a lot with that, so very grateful for that, and I know that you've helped a lot of other people as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm looking forward to getting on those calls. I know for some of you that, and part of why I wanted to have this available for you to do calls is that some of the things that come up for you are not necessarily things that you want to share openly here. And I get that. And I know that's why some people also let me know that they wanted to listen to this on the replay, because they wanted to, not necessarily put some of the things that are happening, because especially when we are like really strong people in the world, we don't always want to let people know the areas of our life that aren't working. And so a lot of times I talk about the facade, where it's like we can look like everything is great on the outside. However, there may be things happening, in our overwhelm, or our mindset, or our anxiety, or, clutter in our space, or just not feeling clear on what it is that we need to do next. So I'm super passionate about helping you all really, regain that power that's been leaked just through life, right? That's just happened. And, I really looking forward to having those calls with you, so that you can really have a clear plan, because that's really important. It's one thing not to just have the knowledge. It's like, what are you going to do about it? Because that's something I hear over and over again, is like, I know what to do, but I'm not doing it, right? And that's that stuck feeling. And that can be frustrating, because that can also be where some maybe shame or upset or frustration can come up, especially when people are like, I know what to do, why can I not do this? And I have this for myself, particularly in my health. Like, I know what to do at the gym, but having, going to a class and having an instructor and having them tell me the quick little hacks that allow me to actually implement it makes it so much easier, and I get faster results when I get that support. So that's what I want to be able to offer to you, is to, have those kind of quick go-arounds to be able to implement the things that you want to have in your life, and stop leaking that power, and really stand in with more confidence, and have the life that you want to live. So I just want to thank you everyone for being here. And any final thoughts or questions or comments?
Well, I have one that is by the way, Sally G, she's on the Zoom call from Australia.
Oh.
So she gets the long distance award. You use that help in the gym analogy. I know one of the things that you had made a comment to me one time was you had gone to a class versus going to the gym just to work out by yourself. And when you were in that class, you said that you had actually pushed yourself harder because you had somebody there as a trainer, as a coach, that was walking you through that process. And because you were with that trainer, you knew that you had worked out harder and you had gotten more accomplished than if you had just gone to the gym by yourself and done the things that you know to do. Right. It was just that presence of that other person that really motivated you to perform better.
Right. Absolutely. And it makes a huge difference. I mean, I always have a mentor in my life, and sometimes I have a couple, because we don't see the things that are right in front of us that somebody else can see with us. I mean, it's why, we're part of masterminds, or why it is that we focus in groups, or we have mentors that help, show us things, because we could look at something till we're blue in the face and not see it. And then when somebody else points it out, it's like it was right there all along. And so to have that extra eyes and that extra support really makes a huge difference. And the community, right? That having people around us that we don't feel like we're doing it by ourselves. I think as entrepreneurs, sometimes, we're in an office by ourselves, or we're just, many hours just having to rely on our own resources to do things. And so when we have mentors and when we're in community and we've got some other support, it makes it more fun and more productive. And you can move through things that, at a much easier rate, right? I mean, who wants to stay stuck in something for longer than we have to? So yeah, definitely. I appreciate you all for being here and for connecting and trusting to just be part of this journey with me. I really, really appreciate it. So thank you.
So, Diane, one thing that you always talk about, and I think is just one of the more powerful things that you've shared, is Clement Watt's statement.
Right. And you're welcome, Barbara. I saw a couple of comments in here. So, and Rachel, thank you so much for being here. So, yes, one of the things that, this is one of my favorite quotes by Clement Watt, which is take the first step, no more, no less, and the next step will be revealed. So many times we feel like we have to take 30 steps, but really just taking one step is really the best thing that we can do. And so for here, putting in the comments call, or to do dianehoffman.com/20-minute call is the first step, right? And getting there and getting that support. And then as we talk, it will be revealed what the next step is. And so just knowing that you can reduce your overwhelm by just moving through that next step that you need to do really makes things so much easier. So definitely, if you've not grabbed your spot yet, and even if you're watching it on the replay, I'm sure there'll be like, well, we'll see if there's a spot or two left, but grab yours in there anyway, because a lot of times some people have to reschedule, and I can fit one in. So just put yours in, and I'll do my best to get you in. So.
All right. And last comments in the chat are thanks, Diane, and I thank you for sharing your wisdom. So thanks for your time tonight.
Absolutely. Thanks for everyone being here. I really appreciate it. All right. Okay, until we connect again, live your spa life and reclaim that power within you. Bye for now.
Bye-bye now.